What you're about to read isn't just another reminder to be kind or to love everyone unconditionally. It's something deeper. It's about the parts of us we often ignore, the hidden emotions we push away in the name of being a good person. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, spent much of his life studying what lies beneath the surface of our personalities. And through his work, he discovered something many of us feel but don't have the words for: that sometimes our kindness can turn into our greatest burden. Have you ever felt like your kindness gets taken for granted? Like the more you give, the more people expect, and the less they give back. Have you ever felt drained, unseen, or quietly resentful, even while doing something good for someone else? If so, you're not alone. Jung noticed a disturbing pattern in many of the people he worked with. Often, the ones who thought of themselves as the good ones were also the ones who suffered the most. They were constantly trying to live up to a version of goodness that demanded self-sacrifice, silence, and endless giving, no matter the cost to their well-being. In today's world, we've created this perfect image of what it means to be a good person. A good person, we're told, is always there for others. They never say no. They forgive everyone, never get angry, and always put others first. At first glance, that sounds noble. But Jung realized something important. This version of goodness is not just unrealistic, it's harmful. When we live this way, we don't just give up our time or energy. We slowly give up ourselves. We become people who exist more for others than for our own lives. Jung introduced the idea of the shadow, a part of our personality we push down because we're afraid of it. The shadow includes things like anger, selfishness, sadness, and even the basic desire to be recognized and respected. We're taught to believe these parts of ourselves are wrong or shameful, so we hide them. But hiding them doesn't make them go away. In fact, it gives them more power. The more we try to be perfectly good, the more disconnected we become from our true selves. Think of your emotions like a ball you're trying to hold underwater. You can do it for a while, but the harder you push it down, the more forcefully it will pop back up. This is what happens when we keep ignoring our true feelings in order to stay nice. Over time, that anger, frustration, or exhaustion finds its way out, often in unhealthy ways. We become passive-aggressive. We bottle up resentment. We feel empty after giving so much, and yet feel guilty when we finally want something for ourselves. Jung saw that true kindness doesn't come from denying who we are. It comes from embracing all of it, even the parts that seem uncomfortable or difficult. When we push away our limits, needs, and emotions, we don't become better. We become broken, and we lose touch with our own power. Many people who are naturally kind and caring struggle with this. They believe being good means always being available, always saying yes, and never disappointing anyone. But what's often hiding behind this behavior is fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being unloved. Fear of causing conflict. So instead of expressing their true feelings, they bury them. They become the reliable one, the helper, the one who holds everything together, even when they're falling apart inside. This can be traced back to early life experiences. Maybe you grew up in a home where you had to be the peacekeeper. Maybe you were praised only when you helped others. Over time, you may have learned that your worth comes from how useful you are to others, not from who you are as a person. These early lessons can shape the rest of your life, leading you into relationships and roles where you're constantly giving and rarely receiving. When kindness becomes your entire identity, it becomes hard to recognize when you're being mistreated. People may rely on you for everything, but when you need support, suddenly no one's around. You become the one everyone leans on, but no one truly sees you. This kind of life feels noble on the surface, but inside, it creates a deep sense of loneliness and emptiness. You start to feel invisible, not because you are, but because you've learned to make yourself small. You've learned to quiet your voice, your needs, your anger, all to keep others happy. But that kind of life comes at a price. It drains you emotionally, mentally, and even physically. It wears down your spirit. It leads to a quiet kind of suffering, the kind that smiles in public but cries in private. And here's the hardest part: the people you're trying to help may not even realize what you're sacrificing. They get used to you always being there, always saying yes, always giving more. They begin to expect it, and without meaning to, they stop seeing your humanity. You become a resource instead of a person. This creates a toxic cycle. The more you give, the more others take. The more others take, the more you feel you have to give, just to keep the peace, just to be loved. But deep down, resentment starts to grow. And because you've learned that expressing anger is bad, you don't speak up. You hold it in. Until one day, it starts spilling out in ways you can't control. Jung believed that the shadow wasn't something evil or negative. It was simply the part of ourselves we haven't accepted yet. It holds not only our pain, but also our strength, our ability to say no, to speak up, to protect ourselves. When we reject the shadow, we reject these parts of ourselves too. We lose our power to stand tall, to take up space, to be honest about what we feel and need. Imagine someone who's been taught all their life that being angry is wrong. So they never get angry, not openly. But that anger doesn't disappear. It turns into bitterness, into exhaustion, into a sense that life is unfair, that they're doing everything for everyone else and getting nothing in return. They may keep smiling, keep showing up, but inside, they're quietly falling apart. True kindness doesn't ask you to destroy yourself. It doesn't ask you to shrink, to hide your feelings, or to constantly prove your worth. True kindness is balanced. It includes the ability to give, but also the courage to say, I need something too. It means setting boundaries, even if it disappoints others. It means telling the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. It means honoring your whole self, not just the parts that make others happy. It's not easy to change this pattern. It takes honesty. It takes strength. It takes the willingness to be seen not just as the nice one, but as a full human being, someone with needs, emotions, limits, and a voice that matters. It may mean letting some people down. It may mean walking away from roles or relationships that only value your service, not your soul. But in doing so, you reclaim something priceless, your wholeness. The shadow is not something to be afraid of. It's something to be understood. When you face it, when you really allow yourself to feel all the things you've tried to bury, something powerful happens. You begin to heal. You begin to grow. You begin to create a new kind of kindness. Not the kind that empties you, but the kind that fuels you. Not the kind that makes you disappear, but the kind that helps you fully show up in your own life. This doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish. It means becoming real. It means becoming strong enough to love others without losing yourself in the process. The journey to wholeness is not always comfortable, but it's worth it. It's the path to a life that feels honest, fulfilling, and free. So if you've ever felt like your kindness was hurting you, if you've ever felt like you were disappearing under the weight of everyone else's needs, know this: you don't have to live like that. You can be kind and have boundaries. You can be generous and still say no. You can be loving without abandoning yourself. Jung taught us that true goodness doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being whole, from accepting every part of who we are, light and shadow, strength and softness. And once you do that, once you stop fighting parts of yourself and start working with them, everything changes. You stop being a martyr. You stop being a ghost in your own life. You become real. And in that realness, you find the most powerful form of kindness there is. one that doesn't just serve others, but also saves yourself. True integration doesn't come from pretending we're only made of light. It's not about being endlessly kind or always saying yes. It happens when we realize something important: our ability to say no, to create limits, to protect our space that is just as valuable, just as sacred as our ability to give. This kind of balanced power is not born from fear or dominance. It's born from a deep acceptance of who we are, shadow and all. It comes from learning to stand in our truth without needing to control or please everyone around us. This kind of power is quiet but strong. It's not about being better than anyone. It's like a tall tree that stands rooted and calm. The tree doesn't scream to show its strength. It just stands there, offering shade when it's needed and holding its shape when it's not. It doesn't shrink or apologize for taking up space. It simply exists as it was meant to, with firm roots and open branches. That's what wise, integrated kindness looks like. It knows when to offer, when to withhold, and it honors its own limits with grace. Something beautiful happens when we accept the parts of ourselves we've been told to hide: the anger, the fear, the pain, the need for space. We become more real. We stop giving because we're afraid of losing love. We stop saying yes to everything just to be accepted. Instead, we start giving from a place of fullness, not from emptiness. We offer our love and support because we choose to, not because we feel we have to. But this doesn't mean we suddenly become hard or cold. In fact, it's the opposite. As we embrace our shadow, the parts of ourselves we've rejected or judged, we become even more compassionate. Not in a self-sacrificing way, but in a grounded, wise way. Our kindness becomes more meaningful because it's real. It's no longer a mask we wear to keep the peace. It's something that flows from our wholeness. This journey requires honesty. It asks us to face our anger and see that it's not something to be ashamed of. Sometimes, anger is a signal that our boundaries have been crossed. It's a message, not a flaw. Learning to say no without guilt is part of becoming whole. That no can be just as powerful and sacred as a heartfelt yes. Not everything in our shadow is negative. There are gifts hidden there: our sharp instincts, our ability to sense when something feels off, our courage to protect what matters. These qualities have been misunderstood or rejected by others, but they're a part of us for a reason. They help us navigate the world with clarity and wisdom. When our kindness includes clear boundaries, it becomes something that supports both us and others. It's not kindness that drains or depletes. It's kindness that knows when to rest, when to give, and when to step back. It no longer looks for approval or applause. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply exists as a natural expression of who we are. Instead of burning ourselves out trying to light the way for everyone else, we become like lighthouses, steady, full of light, but rooted. We no longer give to feel needed. We give because it feels true. And when it doesn't feel right, we don't. Psychologist Carl Jung believed that setting boundaries is not just a skill, but a key part of personal growth. Still, for those of us who've spent years being the nice one, it can feel like a betrayal to say no. We're so used to being there for everyone else that it feels wrong to choose ourselves. But boundaries aren't walls. They're not about shutting people out. They're about knowing where we end and someone else begins. They're about protecting our energy so we can show up fully when it truly matters. And it starts with a powerful shift, recognizing our worth. Not because of what we do, not because of how helpful or giving we are, but because we exist. Our worth is not something to earn. It's already there, inside us. When we understand this, the way we relate to others begins to change. We start to see that love and friendship should be mutual. It's not healthy to keep giving without receiving. Balance is not selfish, it's necessary. And when we constantly allow others to cross our limits, we not only harm ourselves, we prevent others from learning to respect us. Boundaries teach people how to treat us, and they help us treat ourselves with love too. As we begin setting clearer boundaries, some people might pull away. That's okay. The people who truly value us, who love us for who we are, will stay. And those relationships will become even more meaningful. There may be fewer of them, but they will be real, deep, honest. Part of this process involves learning a new emotional language. We start to notice the difference between guilt that's real and guilt that's been placed on us. We begin to sort through what we're actually responsible for and what we've been unfairly carrying. We also come to realize that our time and energy are not limitless. They are precious, and it's okay to protect them. Taking care of ourselves doesn't mean we're selfish. It means we are wise, because we can't offer our love and energy when our own well is empty. By setting boundaries, we make sure that we always have something meaningful to give when it's truly needed. This is the heart of personal transformation. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more ourselves. When we stop rejecting our pain, our anger, our vulnerability, we discover something deeper. We discover power. Not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet, steady kind that comes from knowing ourselves. Our emotions become guides. Anger points to where we need boundaries. Resentment shows us where we've been overgiving. Sadness tells us that something inside us needs care. These feelings aren't our enemies. They're teachers. They help us return to ourselves. People who walk this path start to radiate something different. They don't chase validation. They don't try to be everything for everyone. They simply are. Their presence speaks for itself. Their truth becomes their strength. And they understand something essential. Kindness without limits can be just as harmful as power without care. That's why we need both compassion and discernment. We need the ability to know when to give and when to step back. This new way of living requires ongoing attention, not from a place of anxiety, but from awareness. Like tending a garden, we learn what parts of us need sunlight and which ones need rest. We care for our inner world with love and patience. And over time, our kindness becomes a conscious act, not something driven by fear, guilt, or people-pleasing, but something that flows naturally from a place of strength. We give because it feels true. We say no when we must. We no longer fear the darkness in ourselves or in others. We know both light and shadow have their place. Integration is not a finish line. It's a daily choice. Every day, we get the chance to choose honesty over perfection, strength over performance, presence over pretending. And as we walk this path, something amazing happens. We give others permission to be real, too. When we embody both compassion and clarity, we become a new kind of role model. Not someone who sacrifices themselves to be loved, but someone who lives in truth. Someone who knows how to love without losing themselves in the process. This is what it means to be whole. To know that your worth is not tied to how much you give. That your power is not something to hide. That your ability to say no is not unkind. That your love is stronger when it's given from a place of choice. You weren't born to be perfect. You were born to be real. And that realness, that wholeness, is what gives you the power to live a life of true connection, compassion, and purpose. So if this message touched something inside you, take a deep breath. Let it land. Let it remind you of what you already know deep down. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to have limits. You are allowed to be powerful and kind. You are allowed to be fully, completely, beautifully you.